Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We're coming to you live, just like always, from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios in Lubbock, Texas, and on Facebook, X, and YouTube. And we're also with you on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio, 1420 AM, Lubbock Christian Nation, 987radio.com, and the Live 365 app. So we are out there for the whole world to see and to judge and to be entertained by and to maybe try to learn something that might help you live a healthier life. So I hope all you guys have had a great day. I really do. If you have and you want to send me something about your great day, send me a text. I would love to hear from you. 806-794-0400 is our text line. I would love to hear from you, hear how your day went. If you want to send me a message on Facebook or YouTube or X, that'd be great. Send it to us. We'll try to get all the questions answered. We'll try to get all the comments received. I really appreciate you guys listening to the show. I appreciate the the feedback that we get in the office. We get a lot of it throughout the week, and someone will say something about the show, or hey, I heard you say that last night, or maybe hey, could you say that one more time? What you said last night on the show. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of it, and yeah, that's it. That's the thank yous. So tonight's going to be a good show. It's a combination of thoughts that I've been having, and I just was watching myself move throughout the day, and I was kind of analyzing some of the things that we were doing, and I was kind of analyzing the way I was feeling about things, and I thought, you know what, that'd be great just to talk about that, like some of the different thoughts. And we had a pretty good show. Last night was, if you might have to watch that a couple times to figure out exactly what I was trying to say with that whole take health to church thing last night. It was simply just trying to say, hey, look, you have power inside of yourself because you have the creator of the universe inside of yourself. And that every time you abuse yourself, you abuse the creator of the universe. That's basically what I was trying to say. It didn't say it very smoothly last night, but you can go back and watch it. It's Colossians 1, 24 through 28, I think, through the end of the first chapter. So that's what we were talking about last night. It's pretty cool because when you try to verbalize this stuff, say it out loud. This is live radio, right? This is live social media, and so it's not scripted. I don't have a script. Obviously, you can tell by the way the show goes. This is just live stuff. And what does Larry the Cable Guy say? It's like I'm hearing a lot for the first time myself. Yeah. So, and sometimes I can actually hear it in my headset, and sometimes I can't. So I try to keep up with what's going on. But it has been pretty fun to try to verbalize what you're thinking. To try to really say it in a way that makes any sense. And sometimes you run into some deep stuff like we did last night. Some trying to explain that whole concept in a way that it relates to health, not in a way that it relates to church or in a way that it relates to any other part of your life. So that's what we did last night. First part of the show just said happy birthday to Leslie, and we had a good day yesterday, and so yeah. So let's get on with it. Couple things. Last week we were talking about people who influence me. And we talked about Dr. Dale Bredesen and the end of Alzheimer's. Well, I was looking through my Instagram earlier today and looking through Dr. Mark Hyman's stuff, and he was also one that I said had influenced me last week. I said last week that he influenced me, yes, and so I follow him on Instagram. I look through here, throughout the day just to see what he's teaching. And here's a post that he made. So this is off to Dr. Mark Hyman and Functional Health. This is coming right off of his page. And it's can Alzheimer's disease be slowed? New study says yes. Changing your diet and lifestyle may slow down Alzheimer's. Intensive lifestyle changes may reverse early Alzheimer's symptoms. A study to give us hope. Lifestyle change improve Alzheimer's symptoms for some. Yeah, so it can, and Dr. Bredesen talks about it a lot, right? Dr. Bredesen says the same thing. There are things that it can do, and we there are ways that we can make it better. Um, Hang on, just let me get back to it. I just moved off of it. Um, but so this article is what this is saying today is the same exact thing. He's saying it again. Sorry, I touched the wrong thing and now I lost it. Give me 1 second. I'll see if I can find. 3.3 billion. That's not it. Well, hang on. I looked it up, so we got it either way. There it is. Okay. Um, Dr. Bredesen told us last week in the End of Alzheimer's book, and if you guys, that's a good book. I'm just telling you. I'm not going to get back into it, but that's a good book. The End of Alzheimer's is a good book, and it talks about some of the things we can do. So this study came out, and Dean Ornish was the lead guy on it, and Dr. Ornish has been one of the top researchers in cardiovascular health, and he has a great quote that I got when I first got into chiropractic. It's a quote from him that says, if you change your lifestyle, if you start eating healthy foods, if you exercise, if you get your sleep, then they call you a weirdo. But if you saw your sternum in half and pull your chest apart so that they can do open heart surgery on you, that's common to do. That was Dean Ornish. I thought, yeah, that's kind of funny. If you eat your vegetables and get your sleep and do the things that you're supposed to do to make yourself healthier, sometimes people think you're a wacko, but that's all right. But how do you do it? What's happening? A recent study shows that 6 sustained lifestyle changes can slow Alzheimer's progression and potentially prevent further decline. The study, a randomized controlled trial of 49 people with early Alzheimer's, one group made lifestyle changes for 20 weeks. The other group maintained normal habits. Man, think about that. 20 weeks is not even it's not even half a year. Like 20 weeks. It's like 5 months. That's 5 months. Like you can actually change what if you were dealing with Alzheimer's or early Alzheimer's onset, and you were to actually say, "Hey, you know what? I'm for 20 weeks." And who usually has early Alzheimer's onset? It's not young people, right? Most of the time, it's older people. So if you lived, get to my calculator here. But if you lived, I don't know, 65 years times 52 weeks, that's 3,080 weeks. If you live 65 years times 52 weeks, that's 3,080 weeks that you've lived on earth. Now, so for 3,380 weeks that you've lived on earth, you've done certain things certain ways. And what this study is saying is, hey, look here. If you just change for 20 weeks, I mean, I don't even 3,380, 20 divided by 3,380. That's 0.0059 of your whole 0.00005% of your life. It's like it's not even 20 weeks is not any big deal out of 65 years. You can do it. You can do it. You can actually change your life. Even an old dog can learn new tricks. I think that's a dumb statement. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, first of all, you're not a dog. You're a human being. You can learn something new. I don't know why that's one of those things that we were talking about last night. That's one of those things about moderation, like everything in moderation, right? Hey, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Is it okay? There may be some application. There might actually be some truth to that in dogs, but we're not dogs. You can teach an old person to do something. You can teach an old person to try to clean themselves up. You can teach an old person to move in a better direction. I got an old lady that I'm teaching at 78 years old to quit drinking sodas. Now, we hadn't got her exercising and we hadn't got her eating right, but she did quit sodas and sweet tea. So that's a good thing. 78 years old. So that's what it's saying right here. Over 20 weeks, these guys did some things. They did a whole food, plant based diet. Now, you know how I feel about that. And it's always funny how it always goes to these plant based diets. They, I would really like to see the plant based diet versus the grass fed animal diet and the omega 3 diet combined. But in this particular case, whole foods, plant based diet, various vitamins and supplements, 30 minutes of daily aerobic exercise, 30 minutes of daily aerobic exercise, stress management practices for 1 hour daily, strength training 3 times a week, support group sessions 3 times a week. The results and why this matters. After 20 weeks, the lifestyle change group had significant improvements in 3 of the 4 cognitive tests. The control group worsened in all 4 tests. Major point right there. Major point, because I had this conversation with the daughter of a patient yesterday. She was very distraught about what was going on with her mom, and she was very distraught. She came into the office and she wasn't happy, and I don't blame her for not being happy, but she asked me, "Your mom? Okay, so my mom's been with you for a year. Can you tell if she's any better?" Well, first of all, a year is a very short amount of time to do wellness stuff. 20 weeks will change your whole brain, but you have to commit to the process, right? So I'm not a big fan of trying to slow time down, because I think time is on our side if we'll start doing things healthy. When we start doing healthier things, we start seeing better results. And sometimes it takes a little while to do that. But the other question I ask her is, I've seen absolutely no decline. I may not have seen marked improvement in a bunch of areas, even though we've got some subjective improvement from the patient. We've got some subjective improvement from me. We've got some subjective improvement from Brooke over in the gym. She's got better balance. She can do better things. The laser glasses can move better. There's several things that this particular patient is saying is better at, but it's subjective, not objective. But also, I'm not seeing any decline. She's not sicker, and that's a very big deal right there. When you take the group, you take the one study group, and then you put them on a program for 20 weeks. They got significant improvements in 3 out of 4 cognitive tests. The control group worsened in all 4 tests. That's the thing that we don't measure. If I am in the same shape that I'm in right now when I'm 63, and then when I'm 73, and then when I'm 83, if I don't get in any better shape, but I maintain the shape I'm in instead of going on the decline, I call that a victory. I would say that's a winning proposition right there, that instead of me declining as I go through. This small study is the first to show lifestyle changes can improve cognition and function in early onset Alzheimer's. Nutrition deficiencies are associated with poor cognitive function. And he goes through a few of them: MMA, homocysteine, vitamin D, omega-3 totals, omega-6 totals, omega-6-3 ratio. That's funny. That's right. That's because it's true. The reason that we find those, and I didn't even look at that page, but the reason that we find those, that they show up, I'm reading it right off of Dr. Hyman's page. Omega-6-3 ratio is a big deal. If you don't know your omega-6-3 ratio or your percentage, you might want to get that tested. We can do that for you right here in the office. Chronic stress can lead to inflammation, ultimately increasing risk. Cortisol, DHEA, sulfate, right? Improved metabolism. Alzheimer's has been called type 3 diabetes. Poor blood sugar control can impact risk. I was having a conversation with one of my ladies today. She's really doing well. She's getting started with us, and she's seeing improvements. And she said, "But I just love my pie every once in a while. I just love a piece of pie." And I said, "Okay." And we talked about it. And she said, "But I don't do that unless sometimes I'll make a pie, but sometimes, I probably don't eat much of the sweets except for when I'm making the kids, my grandkids, some cookies. And I said, why do you do that? And I know what a ridiculous question that is. I grew up in Texas. I grew up in New Mexico. I understand that. You're asking a grandma why she's making cookies for her grandkids. Yes, I am. And I ask her, why are you doing that? Do you think your kids need to eat that cookie? And she's like, well, what's wrong with a oatmeal raisin cookie or whatever she said? And I said, well, do you have any sugar in it? And she said, yes. And I was like, okay, there you go. And she said, yes, but we just love them so much. And I'm like, no, actually, actually, you don't. Actually, you have neuropod cells in the lining of your epithelium that actually tells your brain that you got glucose, and that's why you ate the cookie, right? Because if I took the receptors out of your tongue, you would still eat the cookie. That's the catch. That is the pain in the rear catch right there. Think about that. You say that you love cookies because you love the taste of cookies. Oh, I just love these cookies. I just love the taste of those cookies. I love the way those cookies taste, right? No, it's not true. That is an illusion, is what that is. Because if I removed all of the sweet receptors in your mouth, on your tongue, you would still eat the cookie. Yep, you would still eat the cookie because your gut would tell your brain that you ate the cookie, and then your brain would be happy that you ate the cookie, and then you would start to downregulate your dopamine receptors, and then you'd have to start eating more cookies, and then you would start having to drive your blood sugar up, which would now cause your insulin to kick in, and then here we go with sickness and disease, right? So we can improve those things, according to Dr. Hyman. Alzheimer's has been called type 3 diabetes, and it can be improved. Monitor heart health. Brain health is closely linked to heart health, making comprehensive cholesterol testing vital, and getting all the different kinds of cholesterol. And we talked about that. I actually had that conversation too about the cholesterol thing because she was saying that her doctor wanted to put her on a statin, and she didn't want to go on a statin. So, how to advocate for yourself. Know your genes. Test ApoE, a predictive genetic biomarker for Alzheimer's. Yep, the ApoE4, the allele, that's the thing that you, if you have two copies of that, becomes a really, really high chance that you're going to have Alzheimer's disease. This test can result in highlight personal risk decades before the disease onset. Get informed. Proactively measure biomarkers across your entire body every year and track changes. Make lifestyle changes. Adjust your lifestyle to support long-term brain health. So that's pretty cool. Whole food, plant-based diet. This is what they did in the study. Various vitamins and supplements. 30 minutes of daily aerobic exercise. Stress management for an hour, strength training 3 times a week, support group sessions 3 times a week. What is a support group from all of us? We need like a little club. We need a club of life members because we know these answers, right? Support group is being social. Being social, get on your feet, lift your weights, those things that we talk about all the time, get your sleep. And that's kind of what I wanted to that's a good segue into what I wanted to talk about tonight. And because one of the things I was noticing, so we've had some things going on, but last night we had Leslie's birthday yesterday, and then they left. They left to go to Denver. Leslie and Caitlin went to Denver for a few days. Caitlin's got some work to do up there. Leslie went as an assistant. And so they left this morning. Their flight left at like 5 something. So they had to be at the airport at 4 or something. So I think they left the house like at 4:30 or 4:20. And so she was up. Leslie was up this morning at 3:40, I think. And she was just getting ready. It woke me up. And so I've been up since 3:40 and I'm tired. And what I noticed, because I got up, I went back to sleep for just a bit, but I didn't. There wasn't much sleep there. I got up, I taught a class this morning, and then after the class, I worked out, and I'd worked out yesterday, and I usually don't do 2 days in a row, but I had 2 days in a row that I could work out, and it worked out perfectly, and I did a workout today, and I wanted to share with you just a little workout because I thought, sometimes this might be handy for you guys if you knew it. So I thought I would just put it up here for you so you can look at it. We do a CrossFit style workout, and this is what I did today, and I'll see if I could make that. We got some different screen stuff, so we'll see how it handles. Yeah, there you go. That makes it bigger so you can see it. But it's a 20-minute workout. It's you buy in, so you take your first 5 minutes. Now this is after we warm up. We do a 3-minute warm up. We do some white bar work where we're stretching our shoulders, going through some range of motion movements, that type of thing. Then we do our vibe plate work where we do our overhead touches and our pursuits and our side steps on the vibe plate. And that kind of gets us ready to go. And then we start the workout. And so that was my workout this morning. It was the row or the bike, and I chose the bike for both of these, the buy-in and the buy-out. And so I spent 5 minutes on the bike, this is an aerobic workout, and it matters because there's a part in here in Spark I might get to here in a minute, but talking about aerobic and non-aerobic workout. And what that means is you're doing it with oxygen or you're doing it without oxygen. And there's a couple of different systems. We've talked about them in the past about how your body works. And if you're doing something that's really in high intensity in short duration, then you can get by with and that would be called an anaerobic movement. Now, if you keep it going and you're not at that super high intensity, then you kind of get more into the aerobic part of it, like if you're going for a long walk. Now, in this particular case, I was not going for a long walk, and I was kind of going at that at a pretty good pace. And so for me, so I did the buy-in, and then we started an AMRAP. And an AMRAP means as many rounds as possible or as many reps as possible, however you want to look at that. And I was trying to do rounds. So I was trying to do rounds of dumbbell hang cleans, push press, ring lat pulls, and air squats. And so I did those 4 movements, and I did them in sets of 8, and I just did them as many times as I could do them in the 10 minutes that I had. And so you just go from one to the next to the next. So and I increased my weight a little bit on the hang cleans and then on the last set of push presses. But I think I did 6 full rounds and then a part of the next round. So it's taking me somewhere about 1:20 to go through that whole thing. A super fit person would do more rounds than I would. They could get that done faster. A less fit person would get less rounds in. But and then once we do that 10 minutes, then we get a drink just for a second, not much of a rest. And then we got on the bike, and then we rode 5 minutes to finish. Well, a couple things happened. Number one, it was awesome. It was a great workout. I was glad I did it. I was really glad that we got the 2 days in a row. So that worked out really good. But I can tell you that I was tired. I was tired throughout the day. I felt great when I did it, and then as the afternoon went on, I got tired, and I started noticing, and this was the second or third time that this has happened, and because I did this same thing over the last week or two. I told you guys about the cookies that we had at the house that I had a hard time not eating for the first time in 2 years and 3 months. I didn't eat them, but it took me a couple of conversations with myself, right? Why did it do that? Well, what I think is that part of the reason is because I was tired. I was, and that happens to us. And I just started thinking about what we're trying to do and what I'm trying to share with you. And I'm always talking about nutrition, and I'm always talking about eating well, and what the things that we are supposed to eat, and the things that we're supposed to avoid. And one of the things that I got convicted of was in watching myself, is just saying, look, how tired do I get? Um, Hang on one second. Yeah, I don't know if I'm where I am. I'm just going to keep going in case I think I got 17 more seconds. But um, how tired do I get? Um, and then how does, yeah, there it was right there. Whew. I know you guys can't hear that, but I can hear that in my head. It's coming off of the radio, and we're going to take a break. We'll be right back right after these messages. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. You guys stick around. We're going to break the rest of this down on the other side of the break. Okay, sorry about that. The thing that I noticed, and I've noticed it in the past, but I just thought it would be a great thing to talk about, would be how the decisions that I made became more difficult the more tired I am. And I know that that needs to be addressed with all of us, because if we're really trying to make good decisions, we need to get some rest. Like it's vitally important that we get some rest, and it's vitally important for our brain to be able to function properly in order to make the good decisions that we need to make. CrossFitters have a saying that you eat to work out and you work out to live. Well, that same deal could be applied to sleep and rest. And there's a couple of different things, and that's what I want to talk about it in Matthew Walker's book tonight. Talk about insomnia and the difference between just sleep deprivation and insomnia, and what actually happens in the process of that. Because um, we need to be able to carry on throughout the day, right? Well, I didn't get enough sleep last night, and I basically was up since 3 o'clock this morning. And you guys have done the same thing. And sometimes you have, like, you may be a young married couple, and all of a sudden you got kids, and you got babies that are keeping you up at night, or you got a baby that's keeping you up at night, or maybe you got a lot of stress going on in your life, and maybe you're worried about things. Maybe you got some big event that's coming up. Maybe you've a loved one is sick. Maybe you've got some sort of change in the dynamics of your family in some form or fashion. Well, that's going to lead us to being tired. And then we're vulnerable. So when we get tired, now we become vulnerable to making bad decisions. And I just thought we'd point that out, because I can feel myself making worse decisions when I'm tired. And I think that's common amongst all of us. Hang on one second. Let me get us back on the radio. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We are talking about we talked about Alzheimer's in the beginning. We're talking about being tired right now. And we want to make good decisions so that we can make good, healthy decisions. We want to be able to eat good. We want to be able to exercise. We want to be able to do all the things that it takes to keep us healthy and raise the level of human existence on the planet, right? Well, one of the things that we need to be cautious of is we need to be aware of, I don't know if cautious is the right word. We just need to be aware of being tired, because when you're tired, it's way easier to make a bad decision on nutrition. When you're tired, it's way easier to make a bad nutrition on exercise. I don't really want to get up and go and move today. I don't really want to, man, I'm tired. I could have just stayed in bed. The cool thing about this morning is I couldn't stay in bed because I was responsible for being here at 6 o'clock to teach a fitness class. So that is what I have used to motivate myself over the last 5 years. We're in the fifth year of that now. We started this way back in January of 2020, but we started this our classes, and so I don't have the option of staying in bed and talking to myself and saying to myself, dude, I'm tired. I should just stay in bed and skip this one. I can't do that. I got people coming to the gym. I got people that are counting on me. So I have a responsibility to get up. And because I set it up that way to have that responsibility, I have actually been more successful in working out over these last 5 years than I have in the previous 30 years that I went back all the way back through athletics. And so since I was in athletics, since I had a coach that demanded that I get there and be there and work out, that's when I used to do well. That's why the idea that there's the trap of the gym membership, right? There's your $9 Planet Fitness gym membership. If you're that disciplined, you don't need any problems at all. Matter of fact, if you're that disciplined, you ought to just go to Target or something and buy yourself some hand weights and do some push-ups and some sit-ups and some do the little hand weights, and you are awesome. You are a special creature if you have that kind of discipline. Most of us don't. A lot of us don't. And so a lot of us need what we do is we take that model and we put it into we go take the lack of discipline or the lack of understanding or the lack of motivation, and then we go get a gym membership, and then we pay that gym membership on our credit card every single month, but we miss a lot of our workouts because we don't have that discipline. And so you might consider, hey, I got to put myself into a position that someone is counting on me. So let's talk a little bit, because it's a good segue of when we're tired, we make bad decisions and we don't want to be tired. Okay. So one of the ways we can not be tired is to rest. One of the ways we could not be tired is to eat better food. One of the ways we could not be tired is to get our exercise or go for a walk. Okay, but rest might be one of them. And in his book, this is Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep book. In his book, he talks about insomnia, and he breaks it down. I'm going to use the rest of the show tonight to talk about insomnia, but I'm going to show you where it's going to lead to, and you're not going to be surprised. But I'm going to leave you on a cliff right there for a second. But being sleep deprived is not insomnia. In the field of medicine, sleep deprivation. Now, this is the definition of what is considered sleep deprivation. Okay, sleep deprivation is having the adequate ability to sleep. Like you can go to sleep. You have the ability to sleep. You can make yourself go to sleep. That is having the adequate ability to sleep, yet giving oneself an inadequate opportunity to sleep. That is, sleep-deprived individuals can sleep if only they would take the appropriate time to do so. So you can deprive yourself of sleep and not be an insomniac. And that's what PhD Dr. Walker is saying right here. Okay. He's saying that and that's, we get in that trap. We won't go to bed early enough. We won't turn the TVs off early enough. We won't turn the phones off early enough. We won't say to ourselves, hey, I'm going to get in bed at 9 o'clock. I got to get up in the morning. I need to get some sleep. And then we'll start saying, nope, I want to watch this show, or I want to look at my phone, or I got laundry to do, or whatever the thing is, right? I'm not ready to go to sleep, but I still have to get up in the morning, and that can cause sleep deprivation. Insomnia is the opposite of that. Insomnia is suffering from inadequate ability to generate good sleep quality or quantity, despite allowing oneself the adequate opportunity to get to sleep. So, sleep deprivation and insomnia are two just basically opposites. Insomnia is, even if you did go to bed at 9 o'clock, even if you did give yourself all of the things, turn off your TV, turn off your phones, get in bed, do all the things that you need to do, you just can't physically do it. Like, you can't get your body to physically go to sleep and get adequate rest. That's what an insomniac is. That's when you're suffering from insomnia. Is that people suffering from insomnia therefore cannot produce sufficient sleep quality or quantity, even though they give themselves enough time to do so. Before moving on, it is worth noting the condition of sleep state misperception, also known as paradoxical insomnia. He wants to just note this, and I'm just going to share it with you because this is very interesting. This is a condition of sleep state misperception, also known as paradoxical insomnia. Here, a patient will report having slept poorly throughout the night or even not sleeping at all. However, when these individuals have their sleep monitored objectively using electrodes or other accurate sleep monitoring devices, there's a mismatch. The sleep monitoring indicates the patient has slept far better than they themselves believe, and sometimes indicates that the completely full and healthy night of sleep occurred. Patients suffering from paradoxical insomnia therefore have an illusion or misrepresentation of poor sleep that is not actually poor. As a result, such patients are treated as this is, I don't even know this word, hypochondriacal. They're hypochondriacs right there. So, though the term may seem dismissive or condescending, it is very serious taken very serious by sleep medicine doctors, and there are psychological interventions that help a person if this diagnosis is made. I see this. Same thing, paradoxical insomnia. I see it in patients in the office. They're not near as bad as they think they are, but they've told themselves how bad that they are, and they really have a hard time getting out of that. That really, I don't see it. It's not the same thing as paradoxical insomnia, but it is. It's sometimes we get so trapped into thinking that we're bad, that we're not functioning well, or that our health is really bad. And maybe because we're trying to get attention, maybe because someone told us that was true, maybe because our spouse told us that was true, or maybe we got some sort of dynamic going on in the home and we need the attention. And there's a lot of reasons that could take place. But when I see them and I'm like, you know what, you're doing pretty good. No, I'm not. I'm doing horrible. And I'm like, okay, well, everything that I've tested says you're doing pretty good. And I do a pretty thorough test on a person, and you're doing way better than you think. Now, it doesn't always happen. It doesn't happen very often, actually, but it does sometimes happen. So, returning to the condition of true insomnia, there are several different subtypes in the same way that there are numerous different forms of cancer. For example, one distinction separates insomnia into two kinds. The first is sleep onset insomnia, which is difficult falling asleep. The second is sleep maintenance insomnia, or difficult staying asleep. Now, in our world, we look at that we've got two different forms of adrenal support that we use, the desiccated adrenal or the adrenaline, depending on which one of those is. If you can't get to sleep, we use the adrenaline. If you can't stay asleep, we use the desiccated adrenal, because remember what from our teachings way back, that and he's fixing to get into it right here, but from our teachings way back, one of the things that is released in the middle of the night to help control our blood pressure is cortisol. So we want to make sure that we have enough blood pressure to keep the brain fueled with oxygen and nutrients. We want to make sure that blood pressure stays at a certain level, and if it starts to drop, we will get those two things. We'll get cortisol and we'll get aldosterone, and those two things will help push that back up for us. And so we're getting cortisol release in the middle of the night, and part of that cortisol is also the stress response, and that's what's happening is the stress response, and that's causing some issues. And he's going to talk about them right in this right here. Um, Sleep onset and sleep maintenance insomnia are not mutually exclusive. You can have one or the other or both. No matter which of these kinds of sleep problems is occurring, sleep medicine has very specific clinical boxes that must be checked. And he gets into what exactly is going on with it in those. There's some things that in order to get diagnosed with that, you have to meet a certain criteria. What this really means in terms of boots on the ground patient description is the following: chronic situation, difficulty falling asleep, waking up in the middle of the night, waking up too early in the morning, difficulty falling back to sleep after waking up, and feeling unrefreshed throughout the waking day. If any of these characteristics of insomnia feel familiar to you and you have been present for several months, I suggest you consider seeking out a sleep medicine doctor. So, the emphasis on duration of the sleep problem, more than 3 nights a week for more than 3 months, is important. All of us will experience difficulty sleeping every now and then, which may last just 1 or 2 nights. I'm not claiming that I have insomnia just because Leslie had to go to the airport early this morning, and they drove themselves out there, and then Jacob and I went and got their car a little bit later. But I'm not claiming insomnia. I'm simply saying that you may be dealing with it, and I just wanted to share some of this stuff because approximately 1 out of every 9 people you pass on the street will meet the strict clinical criteria for insomnia. That's 40 million Americans who struggle with it in their through their waking days due to wide-eyed nights. 40 million people. And so there's probably 1 out of every 9 people. More than likely, there's somebody that you know that's not sleeping well and they're dealing with this. African Americans and Hispanic Americans suffer higher rates of insomnia than Caucasians. Now, listen to this next sentence because this is part of the reason why I want to talk about it and why it is so important. Is finding this says African Americans and Hispanic Americans suffer higher rates of insomnia than Caucasian Americans. Findings that have important implications for well recognized health disparities in the communities, such as diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, which have known links to a lack of sleep. That's the point. The African American and the Hispanic Americans have higher rates of diabetes, obesity, and cardiovascular disease, and partly because they're not sleeping, and partly, and then there are some differences. There's some reasons why people don't sleep. It doesn't make any difference what color you are. It's not genetic. It's environmental, and you could be white or Chinese. It doesn't make any difference if you're stressed out. And here's where he gets into some of it, and which I think is this is pretty cool because we talk about this all the time. But without belaboring the point, insomnia is one of the most pressing and prevalent medical issues facing modern society. Yet, few speak of it this way, recognize the burden, or feel that there's a need to act. That is the sleep aid industry, and that's a $30 billion a year, perhaps, industry. And it says, do your genetics play a role? Though it is not the full answer, insomnia shows some degree of genetic heritability. Oh, sometimes I can't. Maybe I need some sleep. With estimates of 28 to 45% transmission rates from parent to child. But that's not, there's a lot of factors going on before you make that claim, right? To date, we have discovered numerous triggers that cause sleep difficulties, including psychological, physical, medical, and environmental factors. There's a science to being able to sleep, and there are certain criteria that's very vital in order to be able to sleep. And so, let's talk about some of those right there. External factors that cause poor sleep such as too much bright light at night, the wrong ambient room temperature, caffeine, tobacco, and alcohol consumption, all of which we visited more in detail in other chapters, can masquerade as insomnia. However, their origins are not from within you. Insomnia is something that's coming from within you. Those are things that are on the outside that influence us. So, other factors, however, come from within a person and are innate biological causes of insomnia. So there there's several of these, and these are gonna hit home for us. The two most common triggers of chronic insomnia are psychological and emotional concerns, or worry and emotional distress or anxiety. In this fast paced, information overloaded modern world, one of the few times that we stop the persistent information consumption and inwardly reflect is when our head hits the pillow. There's no worse time to consciously do this. So, one of the common culprits has been clear: an overactive sympathetic nervous system, which is, as we have discussed in previous chapters, the body's aggravating fight or flight mechanisms. The sympathetic nervous system switches on in response to threat and acute stress. You guys know that, right? When we get threatened, we're going to turn on our sympathetic nervous system. So the chronic activation of the fight or flight nervous system causes a myriad of health problems, one of which is now recognized to be insomnia. So um, you could have insomnia from being stressed out. And one of the things that's going to happen is it's going to raise the metabolic rate triggered by the fight or flight nervous system activity, which is common in insomnia patients, results in a higher core body temperature. You may remember from chapter 2 that we must drop core body temperature to initiate and maintain sleep. That's a vital thing, especially in the summertime, right? It's and back in chapter 2, I think we've gone over that before on the show. We have got to drop our body temperature if we're going to get to sleep and maintain sleep. Well, when our sympathetic nervous system kicks in, and we go through this fight or flight response, then we're going to raise our body temperature, and that's going to cause some problems for us. So those two things now are battling against each other. So we must drop our core body temperature to initiate and maintain sleep, which becomes more difficult in insomnia patients suffering a raised metabolic rate and a higher operating internal temperature, including in the brain. Second are higher levels of alertness promoting hormone cortisol and sister neurochemicals adrenaline and noradrenaline. All three of these chemicals raise our heart rate. Normally, our cardiovascular system calms down as we make the transition into light and then deep sleep. Elevated cardiac activity makes the transition more difficult. All three of these chemicals increase metabolic rate, additionally increasing core body temperature, which further compounds the first problem outlined above. So we have natural levels of cortisol, and then we have higher levels of cortisol that go along with being stressed out. And that's not really that's the part that we kind of have to try to control. Third, and they're related to the chemicals, are altered pattern of brain activity linked with the body's sympathetic nervous system. Researchers have placed healthy sleepers and insomnia patients in a brain scanner and measured the changing patterns of activity of both groups to fall asleep. In the good sleepers, the part of the brain related to inciting emotions, our amygdala, which we know, right? And those linked to memory retrospection, the hippocampus, quickly ramp down in their levels of activity as they transition towards sleep. So if you're a good sleeper, then your amygdala calms down, your hippocampus calms down, right? This was not the case for the insomnia patient. Their emotion-generated regions and memory recollection centers all remained active. This was similarly true to the basic vigilance center in the brainstem that stubbornly continued their wakeful watch. All the while, the thalamus, the sensory gate of the brain that needs to close shut to allow sleep remained active and open for business in insomnia patients. Okay, so your thalamus is the relay center. It's the mix master in the middle where a lot of sensory information that comes from your body travels through your thalamus and into your brain. So you can get you can feel your pain through, and one of the things that happens is that we start we stop inhibiting pain because we're not moving, and we start to find out where our body hurts. You ever done that? You ever just lay down on my patients do it all the time, just laying down on the adjustment table. But if you just lay down on an adjustment table, or you lay down on a massage table, or you just lay down in bed and you just lay there for a second and you get really still, and all of a sudden you start to realize all the places that you hurt. And it's like, man, I didn't know that that was sore. I didn't know that my back was tight right there. I didn't know that my foot was hurting like that. Yeah, well, part of the reason is movement inhibits pain. So when we're moving, we're calming that down. But once we get still, then it starts to really fire. Well, if our brain is overactive, if our amygdala is firing and our hippocampus is firing and our thalamus is firing, then we're going to feel some of that. We're going to have lots of things going on, but we're going to increase our heart rate. We're going to increase our blood pressure. We're going to increase our core temperature. We're going to have that fight or flight response that's kicking in, that's keeping us from wanting to go to sleep. You're not going to go to sleep in the middle of a tiger fight, right? You're that's not going to happen. So if you're fighting your environment, and I heard Dr. Peterson say yesterday that anxiety wasn't an internal problem. Anxiety was the falling apart of the external world. Now, I don't necessarily know. I don't know what he meant by that, so I'm not going to disagree with him. But but I because there's other times he was saying things that might that didn't necessarily hold up to that. But so I don't know what part of the I don't know what part of the actual sentence I saw, or the video that I saw. I don't know what it was referring to. Could have been referring to something else, but that is also a component of anxiety, is our external world is falling apart. The things that we depended on have been gone crazy out in our external world, like like um, all of our friends over in Reynosa, New Mexico, right now. Like they're the whole town's on fire. If you're not from around here and you're watching this show remotely, then you don't really understand. But West Texans go to Ruidoso. That's something that is very common. Everybody knows somebody that goes to Ruidoso if they're not the person that goes to Ruidoso. So there's a racetrack there. There's the mountains there. There's skiing there. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on up there. It's our flatland opportunity to get to the mountains. And right now they have a massive fire that's burning down Ruidoso. I actually got a text while we were on the show, um, that some of the updates that were going on, um, and I'll have to read that here in a bit. But that's the external world falling apart that's going to cause anxiety. It's called anxiety for me today. I've been worried about my friend Joe all day long because I don't know if his office burned down, and you know how much I love Joe and how much he means to me, and so I couldn't get a hold of him yesterday, and he didn't have any phone service, and I was just like, dang it. So I text MJ, and MJ hadn't been able to get a hold of him either, and so it's like, well, I hope he's all right. And then finally, he texted me back late this morning and told me that he just got his phone turned back on, and that he doesn't know. He doesn't know what's going on in his office, um, and so that can do it too. That can make it and get it crazy. Hang on one second. We got to shut this radio show off. I get, yeah. Okay. But that's an example. I Joe's fine. His family's fine. I don't know about his practice. I don't know about his building. His building was in a place that was burning, and I don't know if it burned to the ground. If it did, um, it's going to be a very unfortunate situation. Um, I hope he had insurance, but if not, we're going to get him back up and running because the world deserves to have Joe Fraley helping people. So we'll all pitch in and help that happen. But I'll find out more and I'll let you know as soon as I know something on that. But that's an external source of anxiety, and this we're talking about an internal source of anxiety as well. So the vigilance centers, that's an important point. The vigilance center is the right hemisphere. There's only focused attention on the left. The other four forms of attention is on the right hemisphere, and the right hemisphere has an affinity for adrenaline. Remember what our that right up here at the top. Second are the high levels of alertness, promoting hormone cortisol and sister neurochemicals, adrenaline and noradrenaline, and then come down here, the true basic vigilance centers of the brainstem that stubbornly continue their wakeful watch. Yes, your right hemisphere is what is watching your surroundings. Your left hemisphere is what's focusing on one thing. So I wanted to just share all this with you because of how important it was, and and um, and he ends up in the end of the chapter saying, you can now understand how physiologically complex the underlying condition is. No wonder the blunt instruments of sleeping pills, which can sedate you, your higher brain or cortex, are no longer recommended as the first line of treatment approach for insomnia by the American Medical Association. Fortunately, a non-pharmacological therapy, which we will discuss later, has been developed. So yeah, and that's also, I'm going to sleep like a baby tonight. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I'm going to sleep well, and I may start sleeping just as soon as I get home because I am tired tonight. But controlling how tired we are helps us control our decisions on what we want to do to be healthier. That's the point of the show. I hope that's what you got from that. I hope some of that helped you out. And I appreciate you guys watching. We went a little long tonight because I just wanted to finish that thought, and my clock on my radio has been all crazy. So, hope you guys have a great night. Get some rest, get some sleep, turn your phones off early. Give yourself a chance to have adequate rest tonight. And we will see you guys tomorrow night at 6. Thanks for watching this show.